Hi, and welcome back to Mutant Mother, Wife and Autistic 2. One way to talk to you about today is why autistic people find it really difficult to keep in touch. It is probably a bugbear for anyone who has a friend or a family member who is autistic that they don't keep in contact with you, and it can ruin relationships, as I have found. So I wanted to talk about why that is. So the reason why autistic people struggle to keep in touch is the same reason why I initially thought, "Ooh, I might be autistic." When the clinical psychologist said to us that they thought Zoe might be autistic and we should put her forward for an ASD assessment, the waiting list in our area was 14 months, which to me is ridiculously long. It's a whole academic year, and I just couldn't have her unsupported for that length of time. So I decided to go private, and although I knew that an assessment for autism cost around £2,500 that we didn't have, I knew the first appointment was £200, and that it was more than likely that as Zoe has so many complicated needs, she was reported enough for us not to go through the full assessment. So we got in touch with a lady locally who happened to be Zoe's old community paediatrician, and she read through the clinical psychology report, read through the neuropsychology report from Great Ormond Street, and saw Zoe in the session and said that she thought Zoe was autistic and gave her the diagnosis. But one of the questions she asked was, does Zoe initiate conversation? And I said, no, she doesn't. She either has to be really excited about something that's happened, or you have to ask her questions. And even then, she might not engage in the conversation. At which point, my husband piped up with, "Yeah, Britt, but neither do you." And I said, "What?" And he said, "You don't initiate conversations, do you?" And I sat and thought about it. And he's like, like when we're in the car, which is a bugbear of his. When we go on long car journeys, I normally take crochet or a book to read. He drives in the front, I sit in the back, because with Zoe's tracheostomy, I have to be there in case she needs a suction. Zoe's normally on the DVD player. I'm either crocheting or reading a book, and Adrian is basically the chauffeur in front, which is a bit sad. And about an hour or two into the journey, he will inevitably go, "Britt, talk to me." At which point I will say, "What do you want to talk about?" And he said, "I don't know, anything." And I normally just go blank. Completely and utterly blank. I can't, excuse me about the wobbly camera, I can't think of anything. I literally can't think of anything. I will rack my brain, and he gets really offended because, of course, he's my husband. He's like, "What, you don't have anything to say to your husband?" And I'm like, I can't think of anything. I don't initiate conversations with people. I either jump into conversation with them, so latch onto whatever they're talking about and take over, or I will be really excited about something and start talking about that, which is very typically autistic behaviour. Or I'll start talking about something that I'm interested in, or I'll just ask vastly inappropriately personal questions, but in such a way that I hope the person isn't being offended. I don't have boundaries, really, so I'll talk about anything. And I can't do small talk. And the problem with keeping in touch, whether it's a phone call, an email, a letter, you are initiating a conversation, essentially. You are actually contacting someone to tell them something. And when I look at a blank email to talk to a friend that I really care about, or think about picking up the phone, which I hate anyway because of my auditory processing problems, or, write a letter, I simply cannot think of what to say. I have a goddaughter who lives really far away from me, and I would love to have a pen letter relationship with her, so I could learn about her and get to know her. I'd love to do that. Can't do it because I don't know what to say. I look at a blank piece of paper and the whole brain just doesn't work. And people get really offended by that. They think that you don't care, which is the absolute opposite problem. You do care. You care loads. You care so much that you're driven to try, but it's often not good enough. And in fact, I've actually lost a very close friendship to me, or rather it was at the time, because I had a friend for 10 years from university, and 8 years into our friendship, she moved to Australia. And I know that she really likes to keep in touch with people. So I tried really hard to get in contact with her a bit more than I normally would. The other issue I had, of course, is the fact that all of my family live abroad. And as a result, I'm used to people being away from me. So what might have felt like ages to her felt like just a short period of time to me. And I did try to write to her, and I sent her like funny chain emails and stuff, which was just my way of saying I'm thinking of you, because I don't live by the out of sight, out of mind principle. I think about people all the time. I think about the friends that are far away and how much I miss them. I think about my family, which is just horrific that they live so far away, but I can't do anything about that. And so, yes, I care deeply and I love my family and friends deeply, and I think about them all the time, but I don't keep in touch with them because I don't know how to. I don't know how to start the conversation. My friend who moved to Australia, we ended up falling out because she decided that in the 2 years that she was in Australia, I did not keep in touch enough and that I didn't meet her requirements of what a good friend was, and therefore she didn't invite me to her wedding, which really, really hurt because we've been friends for 10 years and it wasn't good enough. The 2 years that she was in Australia were the 2 years she defined our relationship by, and she didn't take into account that my family are abroad, and she didn't take into account that I was never good at keeping in touch with anybody. It has been the bane of my life, and I now come with my friendship with a caveat of, by the way, I'm terrible at making phone calls, I'm terrible at keeping in touch by email, I'm terrible at keeping in touch full stop, but it doesn't mean I don't care about you. I will still love you and care about you, and if you need me, I will be there in a heartbeat because I'm ultimately very, very loyal. But I didn't meet her requirements of what a good friend was while she was abroad. And I really struggled with that. And we actually sat down and had a conversation, and I was open about it, which was really difficult for me because I am not very good at talking about my feelings. I find it deeply uncomfortable because I don't necessarily always identify what I am feeling at the time I'm feeling it. Anywho, and then there was a point in the conversation where she basically said that unsolicited, I didn't ask her, she just said that she thought that it was outrageous that while my best friend was in New York, that I didn't go and visit her once while she was there for a year, even though at the time I had no money. At which point, that one comment killed our relationship dead, because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's people condemning other people for the way they run their relationships without being asked about their opinion. So I don't mind people giving me feedback about what they think I've done if I've asked them, do you think that was the right thing to do, because I'm not always sure. However, I don't agree with people just condemning how someone else behaves within a relationship without being solicited for the advice in the first place. Unless, of course, it's physical or emotional abuse, in which case, knock yourself out. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Initiating conversations is extremely difficult for people who've got autism. We don't know how to do it. We can't do the small talk. We can, in our social masking, we can learn to say, hi, how are you? But it's not natural. I will, when I'm approaching someone, rack my brains to try and think of something I might have learned about that person or that may have done recently that could trigger a conversation, or I will just think about something I've done recently and I'll just start talking about that, or I'll talk about my dog, or I'll talk about Zoe, or I'll talk about my holidays. I'll talk about anything just to start the conversation, but it's not natural. I'm very stressed in the run-up to approaching someone, and when it comes to keeping in contact, I find that extremely stressful. I don't know how to do it. I've been meaning to call one of my closest friends for a very long time. But every time I think about it, I think, well, what am I going to say? Because that's pretty much what happens. Someone says, talk to me, and I'm like, what do I say? Someone says, write to me. What do I say? No idea. People go, oh, well, write about your life. It's like, well, what about it? What have I done recently? What's so exciting about my life that I can tell someone? And yet, when someone starts a conversation with me, I can happily chat till the cows come home because I'm the queen of social masking. And that's why I basically wanted to do this video, was to explain that just because someone doesn't keep in contact with you and just because they don't talk to you as often as you would like doesn't mean they don't care. It just means that they may be struggling with something else. And as for that friend who went to Australia, she judged me essentially for being me. I didn't change. I didn't treat her with any less respect. I didn't care about her any less. But I displayed behaviours I've always displayed. And she knew about that when she was friends with me. So to condemn me for it was really hurtful, because even whether she knew I was whether she knew I was autistic or not, which we didn't know back then, I was still being me. And I, in her eyes, wasn't good enough. So therefore, we're no longer friends. We're Facebook friends. So I do keep in touch with what's going on in her family, and she sees what's going on in mine. But we don't talk because she didn't really know me in the first place, or she didn't think I was good enough in the first place, and that's not good enough for me. So autistic people struggle with keeping in touch because they struggle with initiating conversations, because their minds go blank and they find it really stressful and they don't know how to do it and they don't like being judged for it and they just wonder and worry what people are thinking because of it. And I just wanted to make it clear that just because someone doesn't keep in touch doesn't mean they don't care. It just means they struggle with keeping in touch. And it's just part of who they are. And if you love that person, you need to love that bit about them too and accept them for who they are, not who you want them to be. So that's my message for today. Hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine while it's still here if you're in the UK. And over and out. Bye.